Hi, I'm Darnell Weeks. You also know me as the Michael Myers fanatic or the Myers fan 25. Earlier today, I conducted an interview with writer Larry Brand, the writer of Halloween Resurrection, and I enjoyed doing it. We had a lot of fun together. I understand that Halloween Resurrection can be a very controversial movie and it can evoke a lot of emotions, but I ask that you, the audience, remain civil and respectful. Any trolling on this video will result in the immediate blocking and deletion of your comment. Thank you very much. Enjoy the interview. All right, I'm going to introduce you really quickly here. All right, everyone, this is the Myers fan here, and I have a special guest with me today. I have with me the writer of Halloween Resurrection, Larry Brand. Larry, how are you?
I'm doing good, Darnell, and it's good talking to you and to anyone out there who's a Michael Myers fan.
Oh man, I love this movie. I know a lot of people dislike it, but you know what? Whatever. They can say whatever they want. I love the movie. I thought it was an instant classic. I didn't get to see it the first day, but I went the following day, so I want you to know that.
Well, you're the kind of fan that we appreciate. We know there's a lot of history around the Halloween movies, and a lot of people have been staying with it, and so I'm glad to hear it.
I guess my first question would be, how and why did you become a writer?
Well, I couldn't figure out another way to make a living, so that was a start. I think I was always interested in storytelling. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a scientist. I was more interested in physics and astronomy than in literature. I really didn't, kind of blossom into that kind of life until I was probably in my 20s. But I always did I remember the one thing I remember when I was a kid was that if I would see a movie and I would describe it to other people, I would be very precise. I would detail things, even like the score, and so I guess there was that sense of detail that a lot of writers and writer-directors have. But I kind of grew into it. I was going through my 20s, and it was kind of like I needed to find something, and I was in Hollywood, and I just found that was the first thing. I mean, I tried music. I was terrible at that, and like a lot of people, I was interested in acting. I didn't think I had anything particular that, 1,000 other guys that were my age and general description also had. But writing, from the beginning set me apart. I immediately, I started to get some success, at least some kind of positive response from people who would be out there, producers. And so it kind of was really the first creative thing to click. And then as I developed it, I really realized that that's who I am and what I do best. So. But it was a bit of it was not something, I know people who wanted to be writers probably from the age of 7 or 8, and that was me. I kind of found it, I found it as I went along.
I just thought you did such a good job, and obviously we're here today to talk about Halloween Resurrection. It's one of the most controversial sequels out there, and I want to clear this up once and for all because people keep debating about this online. Was H2O really intended to be the last installment?
Well, that's an interesting question. When H2O, here's what I was not expecting. I think a certain percentage of the flack we got for making Resurrection was that a lot of fans, you think fans of all people would be the ones to want to see another episode, and we got a lot of flack because a lot of fans thought that H2O was such a wonderful way to end it with him being beheaded that they were kind of angry that we brought him back. So I was really not expecting flack from that quarter, and we did get some, if not a lot. You know, I obviously dealt with Mustafa Akkad, who was the producer since the first one. I believe he financed Carpenter's the original one in 1978. And you know, he would always say, I don't even know he was half joking. I think he might have been totally serious. Well, you know, I'll stop at 22 or 23, something like that. You know, we'll keep making them until. And essentially, that's what they did. I mean, after Resurrection, which I guess in a sense is the last Halloween before they well, it is until they rebooted with Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2. So, you know, was it in their minds at the time? I don't have a definitive answer for you. Knowing Mustafa, I think he always expected they would find a way to resurrect Michael. When I came on board, I did not invent that sequence. They had already had an idea that he would have somehow switched masks or put the mask on some innocent person. So they already had it in their idea how they were going to resurrect him. I wish I could give you a 100% definitive answer, you know, whether that was always the plan. I suspect, knowing Mustafa, probably he was not expecting H2O to be the last one. That's the closest I can come. I know Jamie Lee was. She did not really want to do another one. And she agreed to do ours on the basis that she would be killed in the show, which is kind of funny, as if we couldn't resurrect her like we resurrect Michael every 5 minutes. But that was her condition. She had two conditions. One was that she would be killed in the show. The second was that she would only be on for 30 seconds, I think. It was a very, very short amount. And when I wrote the part, they wound up talking her into doing a longer, you know, it's a few minutes, certainly not 30 seconds, like 5, 7 minutes or something like that, which she's in the movie. But Jamie Lee did not want to do anymore. And then I believe my recollection is that she gave the money to charity. She really just wanted to be done with the series. But that was so yeah. And it did wind up in a de facto sense. It did become the last of the original Halloween movies.
Please tell us, how did Resurrection even come about? Do you know?
Well, I had met Paul Freeman, the producer. We shared an agent at the time, and they were looking for a way to do the next Halloween. Now, as I said, they'd already figured out they wanted they figured out how he was going to be revived or resurrected, or that somehow he escaped death. That they figured, but they didn't have a plot, they didn't have a story. And I had been thinking, this is, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, and there was this phenomenon, so-called found footage, and the internet had been around for a while, but the idea of these places that would be hooked up with cameras, I guess generally for, you know, they had young girls, you know, not really like porn sites, but like sites. You know, I imagine this kind of scenario where it'd be just kind of a voyeuristic thing with people watching, almost like those TV shows. I mean, I never watched them, but there was the famous MTV show where they put cameras in the house, they track these people's lives. So I kind of came up with this idea of having cameras in the house and tracking these people's lives, and of course Michael shows up, and then everybody starts getting killed. And so it kind of came up, that was the original kernel of the idea. But originally it was nothing to do with Michael Myers. It was just this kind of idea of doing this reality show in which people are, you know, the killer gets in the house. So when I met with Mustafa, because he read another script of mine, a spec script of mine that he really liked. And so he wanted to bring me in to see if I had an idea of how to do Halloween 8. And I just kind of took this old idea that I had about this house with the cameras, and he liked it. So they pitched it to Dimension, which was a part of Miramax, and they liked it, and then I was hired to write it. Of course, it mutated quite a bit. We brought on Busta, and he became this kind of entrepreneur who had this idea. You know, it didn't involve cameras in the house, it didn't involve that. But then the house became not a random house with, you know, a bunch of kids running around, but the old Myers house, which made it so that was that kind of was necessitated by now we're taking this generic idea and putting it into this Michael Myers world universe. So.
I thought it was great. Like I said, I loved the movie. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was a little strange with the clown situation, though. I don't quite understand the clown thing, you know, with the at the beginning with the Raggedy Ann, and I don't quite get that, you know. And then,
well, I think as I recall, that she had I think it was a bit of a device. It's been, it's been almost 20 years since, I guess, the movie came out in 2002, 2003. So I'm 15, 16 years. I believe she was hiding, giving her medication to keep her calm, and she would put it under her tongue, and then I believe she put it in the doll. Am I getting that right? I mean, you probably
yeah, yeah, it's.
Than I did. I don't think it had any great significance, other than maybe it was a remnant of her youth, and, because she was a kid when the movie. Well, she was a teenager when the series began, so maybe it was a recall to that more innocent period of her life, and then it became a device used to stash the pills so she would be alert. Now, how she knew to be alert that particular day, as if she somehow sensed Michael was going to be in town, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one of those things you have to buy when you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
As in any movie, But I wouldn't read too much into it, frankly. Like I said, I think it was more just a device to get her to hide the pill somewhere.
I've always just wondered the significance of it, that's all, and you've cleared it up for me, so. And you're right, it was probably just a callback to the original, so. Because she...
Now, but you reminded me of something there, Darnell. Because I was conflating in my mind the clown and the doll. The doll was the thing with the pills, but there also was a clown, right, on the premises.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, there were two different things. The clown, actually, we are in a facility for I guess it's criminally insane, and the criminally insane or people who have not been segregated from the rest of society because they're a danger to themselves or others. And the clown, I guess, was a character who I perceived as maybe like a John Wayne Gacy type mental patient. Now, why they would have let him walk around in a clown outside, again, that's one for the ages. But my recollection is that I actually stuck that in as kind of a reference to a John Wayne Gacy type character. So that's the clown part of it as opposed to the doll part of it, which is a separate question.
Okay, and I had to ask that because I love that scene with the whole, Michael Myers, born October 19th, 1957. Larry, listen, I'll tell you, I must have rewound that scene at least 15 to 20 times a day.
Well, you're the kind of fan we love.
I'm such a big fan of this. That's why I really appreciate you doing this interview, man. I want to thank you so much because I love Resurrection. I really do. I can't say it enough.
We're good. Well, good. We're glad you enjoyed it.
My next question would have to be, what was it like working with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Well, I didn't direct the picture, so I didn't work with Jamie Lee. As I said, when we came on board, she was already set to do a very, very short piece. And so I only knew her indirectly through the producers and the director, Rick Rosenthal. But, my understanding was, look, this is a woman who did not need to do this. She might have been contractually obliged from the prior one, H2O, but she was really only obliged to 30 seconds. So she was generous enough with her time to do a much, much longer segment to really close out her character. And as I said, I believe she gave the money to charity. So I think that pretty much says what you need to know about Jamie Lee. I think she was, she certainly I think people were very happy to work with her, but I didn't get to work with her personally. As a writer, you know, if you don't direct the movie, you know, basically once the movie starts production, you're pretty much out of the picture.
Oh, well, I had to ask anyway, and I thank you for answering that to the best of your ability. Now, this next question has been debated for years, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think TV and movies cause violence?
No, that's an easy one. No, of course not. Violence has been around since human beings emerged from the Serengeti plain. It exists in our closest relatives, the chimps. They're incredibly violent, especially the males who are looking to dominate a little clan. So, no, it's a nonsensical argument. I think the reason we love representations of violence, and this goes back to Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare is incredibly violent. Did Shakespeare cause violence? Of course he did. I mean, he described it. You know, so no, this to me is, you know, there's a lot of arguments that I tend to be able to see both sides. I rarely will make an unequivocal yes or no. This to me is not even debatable. They're silly arguments, and they're based on emotion, and they're not based on really thinking. You know, do violent people watch violent videos or TV shows or play violent? Well, of course they do, but it's not that it made them violent. You know, I grew up in an era where I believe there was more violent TV, and they didn't show blood. I mean, we didn't have HBO or Showtime when I was a kid, so it was, in that sense, it was fairly pristine. But you know, they also ran cigarette ads. You know, that never encouraged me to never smoked a cigarette in my life. You know, so this idea that we're sort of buffeted around by the cultural winds and that causes, no, there's just no evidence for that. So the evidence is exactly the opposite. Violent people are going to be attracted to violent media. You know, I've had 15, you know, I've had kids, you know, teenage nephews who, you know, you will sit there watching them. They almost became ludicrous when they're playing the, you know, violent video games, and you kind of have a conversation. Oh, you know, you think you're going to wind up killing somebody, and it's laughable. There's no difference between
you're right.
Violent game and violence in reality. A normal functioning brain knows that difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have to ask these things because that people always talk about, does it lead to violence? Does it? I don't believe it does, but I'll put it this way, and then we'll move on to the next question. They said it best in 25 Years of Terror. The only way it can make somebody a murderer is if the person was already insane. You know, that's, and I agree with that. If the person was already, I don't want to use the word crazy because I guess I have to be politically correct because I'm a public figure now, but I'll use the word insane. If they're already insane, I guess that's the only time you would have a problem, you know.
Well, here's what I do think occurs. I do think there's a phenomenon like a copycat phenomenon. So I think a person who is inclined in a certain direction is inclined to be violent. You know, when I was a kid, we lived through quite a few assassinations. So I think some pathetic misfit like Lee Oswald, you know, if he were a teenager today and he wanted to make a big splash or name for himself, he might shoot up a school. Back when he was around as a young man, his way of acting out and becoming as he purported to be or wanted to be a historic figure was to assassinate a president. So I think if you have, but he had a history of violence. Point from the age of 12 or 13 was the first time he was in the historical records having threatened people and, you know, and acted out violently. So yeah, I think the direction of violence that violence takes is absolutely influenced by the culture you're in. If you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old or even older, someone in your 20s, and you have a mental illness, and you are inclined to acting out violently, yeah, you're going to act out violently in the year 2018 very differently from the way you might have in the year 1965. But that doesn't mean that it made you violent. It simply means that even violence has a cultural context. So the way you act out is going to be different based on the culture you're from. But that's a very different statement from applying some kind of causality to those acts. No, crazy people are going to do crazy things. My first movie, The Drifter, first movie I ever directed, I had a line there where, even crazy people have reasons. They just had crazy reasons. Well, that was true then. It was true, for Lee Oswald, and it's true for whatever sick individual shoots up the next public space or school, or there's nothing causal about it other than the directionality that violence will take.
I totally agree with you. And I'm really enjoying this, and I hope to have you back someday. I think you are just awesome, really.
Well, I appreciate it. I say, we owe a lot to fans. I mean, without fans, we don't get to make movies. So it's a reciprocal process.
My next question for you would be, why do you think so many people hate this film? I make different kinds of movies. I've made a few studio movies like Halloween Resurrection, and did a movie called Hard Luck with Wesley Snipes and Sybil Shepherd and Mario Van Peebles. And the bigger movies, you have much, as a writer-director, you have much less control over, and there are more people, quote, helping you make the movie or write the movie that really don't know what they're doing, and so it's not always a happy affair for the writers and sometimes the directors involved. So sometimes movies get adulterated or dumbed down, or it's just not what you wanted. So the other part of your career or your life is that you make small independent movies that you have a lot of control over. You don't make much money on them, or sometimes you don't make any money on them. But, so you look at the bigger projects as bill-paying and the smaller ones as soul-fulfilling. So I have my own mixed feelings about Halloween Resurrection. I think that I'm glad that a lot of people really do love it. I wish everybody did. I mean, even if it's not something I entirely own, because of, various interferences that I got when I was writing it. But, the reality is people are going to respond to your stuff the way I've gotten very perplexing responses. Sometimes it's something that people, you think they won't get or love, and they do. And sometimes, you'll think something that's going to be popular and people really don't like it. So it's unpredictable. Ultimately, I think, as I said earlier, what was interesting was that a lot of people resented the fact that we trod on the great ending of H2O, and a lot of people felt that was really the way to end the series, and were a little bit angry at us for bringing it back. But other than that, I do think, and of course I'm not an objective witness here, I'm not an impartial witness, I think it does get a bit of a bad rap. I think there's parts of it that are quite effective. I think Busta, does a great job. I think he's giving certain energy and comedy to the role. I don't take the movie that serious. I think there's always a kind of an undercurrent of, kind of intentional absurdity to it, which I think maybe some people didn't like, other people did. But, I can't, if I could get into the mind of the audience, then nobody can do that. Even the most successful filmmakers you can think of, occasionally they mislead the audience. So I'm certainly, people like Steve Spielberg can do that. I certainly can't. I have no claim to understanding what goes on in the mind of the audience. I'm glad and privileged to have an audience that's already puts you ahead of the game. And if sometimes they hate what you do, well, at least you're out there, and you hope that the next time they love what you do. Well, I have to say this again. I absolutely love it to death. to death. I love this movie, and you know what? If you have like, you know, what do you call it? The work print or whatever? You don't have that, do you?
Print of the movie? No. That,
Okay.
Again, I did, you know, when I make a small movie like The Drifter or Paranoia, or, you know, one of the movies that I've done that are available on Amazon Prime or back in the DVD. Well, I guess DVDs are still up. I started making movies in VHS days. You know, with some of my Corman movies, I probably have a print line around somewhere. But, you know, this was a big studio movie, and I don't know if Rick, the director, has a print movie. Maybe he does. But generally speaking, the studio owns everything, you know, from nuts to, you know, soup to nuts, I guess. Phrase. Yeah, so no, I wouldn't have any access to anything.
Because I would love to see like the early work print versions of the movie. That's how much I love it.
No, I haven't. I mean, to tell you the truth, I haven't. Again, if you're the director on it now these days, because everything is edited offline, non-linear. It's all done with Premiere or Avid or back a few years ago, Final Cut. So we all cut our own movies on video, on digital. So you have multiple not prints, but multiple versions of your picture that you can kind of look back and dissect. But, you know, of course they were cutting non-linear, you know, with Halloween as well. I don't know, because I wasn't the director. I don't know if it was cut on Avid. I assume it was cut on Avid. That was the industry standard, still is, for bigger productions. So there may or may not exist earlier versions of it, but I would not have had access to them at the time, nor would I have now, and whether they even still exist, it's really hard to say. And then what they'll do is, of course, they will have test screenings, and then based on the screenings, they may do cuts or sometimes even reshoots. I don't think they did that with Resurrection, but they certainly do cuts. And then, so whether there's an archive somewhere, a digital archive of earlier incarnations of the movie, now there might be, but I mean, I would have no idea. And of course, the Miramax fucked, and I don't know what's going on with the Dimension film. So yeah, but that's not something, as a writer, you know, I would not have had access at the time, and I wouldn't have it now.
Well, I have to ask you, my next question is, whose choice was it to bring in Busta Rhymes?
Well, there's a history to that. They had worked with LL Cool J in H2O. And everybody loves LL, personally, as well as what he did for the film. He played the character Ronnie, and they would have been thrilled to get LL to come in to do a part in Resurrection. Now, LL was not available, or at that point he'd blown up to the point where they just couldn't afford him. I guess. Because I think prior to H2O, I don't think LL was thought of as a movie star. I think that's why he did the picture. But they would have been thrilled to get him in the movie. But like I say, they probably screwed up contractually. Normally, if you get an actor on a project, you try to secure him for your next film in case something like he does blow up like LL. But in any event, they couldn't get him. So they'd already gotten it into their heads that they wanted a rapper because, you know, because he did so well and everybody loved him, and I think he liked their audience. So we interviewed Coolio. I remember Coolio came in and read, and they wound up with Busta. And I thought he was, and he'd already had some cred as an actor. He was in, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. He had a, Forrest Whitaker movie. He was, you know, you probably look it up on IMDb. He already got some real good press on his performance. A couple of years earlier, I can't remember the song off the top of my head. So they knew he could act. So he was hired. I met him at the screening, well, for the premiere of the movie, and I just remember he was a very, very generous, very nice person. I mean, I didn't have a lot of contact with Buster, but I thought he was a terrific guy. It was really a fun meeting and a pleasure, and I thought he did a terrific job in the movie. I think he was quite charismatic, and he handled the humor very, very well. But, like I say, basically it stems from they loved LL, and LL was just not available, so they decided, well, let's find this other hip-hop artist, and they got Busta, and I was very happy with Busta. I thought he was a very good job.
Yeah, I thought he did okay. I thought his character was kind of mean in the movie, the way he was, yelling at people and cursing at them. But I really love how he stood up to Michael Myers, and I think as a person that's confined to a chair, watching that movie made me feel really vulnerable. So when I saw Resurrection, it made me think, put myself in the viewpoint of the victims on screen, and I'm saying, well, I'm in a wheelchair, which I am, so it's like, well, what if this was happening to me? So when I saw Buster stand up to him, it's sort of like I was living vicariously through the characters, if that makes any sense,
Oh, sure. I think the thing about and the appeal of the films really is this sense of vulnerability. I mean, all human beings share a sense of vulnerability to forces beyond their control, and Michael Myers has always been that kind of force of nature. I think the success of the series really depends on that sense of putting the audience in the place of the victims, and that can happen to me. I think that's the frightening aspect of it, and the successful aspect of it. And if I care as much as we get to experience that terror while in the safety of our own homes or in a movie theater. By the way, to me, Buster's character was not. Yeah, I mean, he was kind of an abrasive, but kind of in a way lovable character. I mean, yes, he was very opportunistic, and he was flamboyant, and I think that was the way the character. I mean, that was the way the character was conceived. But I always had a kind of affection for the character. I didn't think he was really. I don't think he. I don't want to say a heart of gold. It's a bit of a cliche, but I thought there was something beneath his gruffness and his abrasiveness that was a little more gentle than that. But and I also did think there was that Buster pulled a lot of humor out of that role. The one scene where he kind of tells Michael to walk to get out of Dodge, I think the phrase he used. I think that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because you're not expecting, it's kind of, nobody's ever done that to Michael, and Michael, we assume he's going to just kill him, and he just kind of turns and walks away, and I mean that to me worked quite well, and I don't know that maybe somebody that Buster's chops wouldn't have pulled that off, but yeah, I mean, he does remind us all of our vulnerabilities, and no one can really stand up to him, at least in the long run, physically, to Michael. That's the way the character's set up, and I think that is part of the key to the success of that character. The fear that he initiates.
And I say that because when Busta Rhymes was doing these karate moves, I was yelling in the theater with him. When he was making the karate noises, I'm telling you, Larry, you really you took me on a ride. You really did. Because
that's our job, so I'm glad it works.
I felt all kind of emotions. I felt happy. I felt scared, at times, and so.
Did you see it with a big crowd? Was it a big crowd? You said it was the first few days, right?
Well, I went on July 13th, 2002, and
okay.
So I don't remember there being a lot of people. I think there were people behind me. It wasn't that many, and I guess it's because the area where I was, they're not really big on horror, maybe. So I don't know. I just know I loved it, and like I said, I'm a person that's confined to a chair. So when I saw Michael Myers doing these awful things, I was like, what if that was me? You know, he could easily get me.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, he would probably like that because he's sick, you know. So when I saw Busta Rhymes getting back at him, I was doing the karate noises with Busta, and I know the people in the theater thought I was crazy, but, you know, whatever.
Well, I saw it. I go back and forth, but I was in New York at the time when the movie came out, and I saw it. So I would go to the 42nd Street, where tons of the deep theaters are, and for the first week or two, it was pretty much sold out crowd, so it was a very different experience. Yeah, it seems my recollection is that people would get quite animated, quite into the action sequences. They would jump when they were supposed to jump and laugh when they were supposed to laugh. So, and like I said, I do a lot of smaller movies where, we'd be thrilled to get a fraction of that size audience that you get for a Halloween movie. So it was a lot of fun to see it with a sellout crowd. The first couple of weeks that it was out. But yeah, audiences, New York audiences can be very animated and then really get into it. It was a lot of fun. It's not the kind of movie I always do. So if you don't get that reaction generally if you're playing at a little film festival somewhere in the Midwest, it's just not the reaction you get when you do a Halloween movie.
I want to thank you because it really, you really, I'm telling you, you took me on a roller coaster ride,
Cool.
I was.
We don't make movies without you guys, so the thanks are returned.
I was really scared at times and happy at times, and I was really happy when Busta kicked his ass. Excuse the expression, but I was happy because by the end of the film, I hated Michael Myers. I liked him.
Well, yeah, don't we all?
I liked him when it first came on, but by the end of the film, I just wanted him to die. I hated him.
Right.
My next question for you is: would you be willing to come back and do another one?
Well, since Rob Zombie took over the franchise, at least for the first two, I don't know. I don't know where that's really going. And of course, Mustafa Akkad was murdered tragically in
Yes.
about 5 to 8 years ago. It's been a while. He was one of the two. I think there were only a couple of American victims of a terrorist incident at a wedding in the Middle East. He and his daughter, Malik's sister, were killed. It was horrible. I remember hearing about the incident and hearing that an American producer had been among the killed, and I didn't even realize it. One of the chances it's just somebody and it was Mustafa, and it was really incredible tragedy, and his daughter, who was just a beautiful young woman. I mean, it was really, so with Mustafa gone, I know Malik has taken over the operation. Malik is a new kid, and so we talked briefly. They were looking to do what would have been Halloween 9. So we're going back into the maybe 3-4 years after Resurrection came out, and I had a conversation with Malik. They weren't happy with the scripts they were getting, and he, asked me if I was interested in coming up with an idea. And I don't. The time I wasn't really. I was on to other projects, and I was happy to have the Halloween franchise, but I did. The kind of treatment you get from Miramax and Dimension, which of course was the infamous Weinstein brothers, was less than attractive to me to go back into it with those guys. So I didn't really pursue that. Now, if someone were to come to me now and they're going to re-up do a Halloween 3 or 4, based on the new reboot, the Rob Zombie reboot, look, you don't turn down work without thinking about it, or at least, so do I actively pursue anything like that? No. Would I consider if somebody came to me, with an offer? Sure. I mean, most writers do. I mean, as I say, it was really a privilege in many ways to be involved in a franchise that had that kind of long history. So, you never say never in Hollywood. I think that's kind of a wise position.
Well, I have a question for you. In 2015, Jamie Lee Curtis referred to the film as a joke. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't know Resurrection, or just in general.
She talked about Resurrection she called it a joke.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it was not particularly well received by most critics. I don't know. I don't know about the personal, the politics between her. I don't know. I know with her and Rick, or if they got along, or just their general feelings about the franchise, or just not wanting to continue to be part of it. But look, like I say, I have no negative feelings about her. I didn't deal with her directly. She did the part. A lot of times actors are not happy with the movies they make. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but I'm not going to question her feelings on that. And if she didn't enjoy the movie or like the movie, then I'm sorry. Well, I wish she had, but we take these kind of comments in stride, and I just so I don't have any strong. Honestly, I hadn't heard that, so it's news to me. But I don't really have a strong reaction one way or the other. A lot of people didn't like the movie. Some did. Kind of. At this point, I tend to read only my good reviews. Of course, with Halloween Resurrection, there weren't that many. But
well, you have me. That's for sure.
I know, and like I say, you take it in stride, and there were certainly a lot of people that did watch the movie, did like the movie. The movie did, pretty well financially. So, just take it in stride.
And my final question for you, it's kind of a two-part question. What are your thoughts on the new film? Did you know that they were making a new Halloween film?
Well, you're talking about they're doing one now?
Yeah, it's done by a company called Blumhouse.
Oh, sure. Well, Blumhouse is Jason Blum. Blumhouse is the big guys on the block in horror for the last 7-10 years. They're terrific. I think Jason Blum is a good guy. I actually briefly had a project with him years ago before Blumhouse, and I met him, and he was just a terrific young kid at the time. So I'm very happy for his success. I thought he was a good guy. I did not know Blumhouse was doing it. Blumhouse tends to do really good work. They really, they've made some of the best horror movies in the last decade, I think. So it's encouraging if they're taking over the franchise. I don't know what they're doing with Trancas would be. Trancas is the company that, Mustafa and Malik's company. So I don't know. It's the first I've heard of it, so I can't give any kind of response beyond that. I'm encouraged that it's Blumhouse. I thought Rob Zombie did a good job on the reboot. Again, a lot of people.
Oh, I hated that. I hated the reboot.
Yeah. I know a lot of people hated it. And again, that's just what you deal with. If you're the filmmaker, from my perspective, if you're getting to make movies and people are actually paying you to make movies and you can support yourself, you take the negativity in stride and you move on to your next project. And I know the movie did very well financially. I thought it was pretty good. I thought Rob did a pretty good job. So people hated it, but it's a subjective thing. I don't know anything about the Blumhouse movie other than to say that Blumhouse generally does really good work. So I'm encouraged if Blumhouse is doing it, I suspect it'll be pretty good. Do you know if it's a reboot again?
It's supposed to be. They said what they're doing is they're gonna only acknowledge the first movie, and none of the other movies happen. Not even part 2. So.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Well, listen, I see everything that comes out pretty much, so I'm sure I'll see it. But I would say, sight unseen, if Blumhouse is involved, it's probably, it's very encouraging. Let's just say that.
Well, I want to say this before I ask you the final part of my question. I really hope that one day you're able to get in touch with Scream Factory or Shout Factory or whatever you call those guys that make those Blu-rays, because this is so underrated. It's a gem to me, and I hope they call you back to do some commentary on Resurrection or something, or maybe you can do a little interview like you've done for me. And I want to say this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Shout Factory would be crazy not to call you to get you to come in and speak about Resurrection, and I mean that. They would be crazy not to do that. I hope they do that someday.
Well, I appreciate it, and I've done commentary. I don't have done a lot, which is odd because since I generally write movies, but some of the movies I've done have been smaller, and we haven't done that. I mean, we had little extras and stuff, but the official kind of running commentary. I did one for Mask of the Red Death, my second Roger Corman movie, which we made in '89, and the DVD came out about 4 years ago, and I did a commentary, which was a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, generally speaking, they if it's a writer-director, they will get the writer-director. If it's a writer and the director are two different people, as was the case with Resurrection. I don't know if Nick will be interested. Listen, these things are interesting. They're fun for me. I'm happy to do this. If anybody calls, I'm not a problem.
And I'm not just saying that so I can get a free copy. So,
well, I'm sure if they, under your encouragement, they produce one, I'm sure they'll be willing to send you one.
And my final part of the question is, if you could change anything about Resurrection, what would it be?
Well, if you'd asked me at the time, I probably would have had a dozen things. Because as I said, as a writer, the original writer, you're not always happy with some of the turns that are taken. There were a bunch of things that were changed from my original script. And I remember there was a scene with the kids smoking weed that I didn't like. And it wasn't because I don't, kids smoke weed. It's perfectly, that's what people do. It wasn't a moral position. It was more just a logical position because at the time, of course, weed was illegal, that it didn't make sense that they would be knowing that they were on camera. I remember that defied the logic of the moment. It was a minor thing. I think there were a few other. I tend to, kind of deconstruct a little more, meaning that I try to take your expectations and maybe subvert them and not have you think exactly what's going to happen is going to happen. I think there were a couple of moments in there that were like that. I think the best one was when, as you point out, with Busta tells Michael to get out of Dodge, and against our expectation, he does. I thought that was quite good. Like I said, it's been 15 years. I don't, other than I do remember the smoking weed bothered me because it just didn't seem like why would they, they wouldn't be doing this if they know they're on television. Another thing was I had a different ending conceived. I wanted to replicate H2O have a more definitive ending. I can actually give you some specifics here. The brilliant thing about H2O was it ended with him unequivocally, supposedly, being dead by being decapitated. Even Michael Myers has not come back from being decapitated.
No, he cannot.
So I wanted something more definitive than that. And I had read somewhere where bird bodies sometimes will have a muscular contraction that would cause them to appear to sit up. Now, I think that's in the process when the heat is still present, but I wanted to use a little, dramatic license and have them find the body of presumably of Michael. Of course, it turned out that they made it on the Halloween 9. It would have somehow been somebody else, but at least in the context of Resurrection, that they would have found this body in the rubble, and the scare, the final scare, which in Resurrection is him opening his eyes, which is to be a little bit blah. It didn't work. I mean, the audience just kind of jumped when he did that, but it seemed a little bit blah. I would have had them finding the body, and as they realized it's Michael Myers, I would have them just sit up, as a charred remain, sit up, and with this muscular kind of contraction. And that to me would have been a scarier, more startling ending. And then, but like I say, it wasn't to be, it was my call at the time. But those two little things are, I guess, what I would have done different. I just figured it would be more of a visceral scare to have him sit up and then maybe, tell the black, or then you could, Anyway, that was my thought.
And do you know anything about the 9th movie? I just want to ask you that before we wrap this up. Do you have any knowledge about what it was supposed to be?
No, I don't. As I said, Malik had talked to me briefly about doing a pass on the script. I think they'd already had a couple of teams of writers going through it, and I was frankly not interested enough. I mean, if they made an offer and said, here, we're going to throw some money at you, of course I would have considered it, maybe done it. But it was very speculative at the time, and it was kind of like, well, you're interested in getting involved in this. And at the time, I guess I was on other projects, so I was not particularly happy with the Dimension, the people I had to deal with from Dimension that were. Again, it's the Weinstein's company, so you can, figure that out for yourself. But their style in dealing with artists is not that different from their style in, situations that are in trouble for now. So I wasn't jumping at the chance. So no, I didn't read the script for 9. It wound up never happening. So I can't throw any light on that. It wound up, because they never got a script together that they were going to move forward on. I guess that's what convinced them to do the reboot with the Rob Zombie one. So yeah, so I guess forever, Halloween Resurrection will be the last of the original series. So I guess we have some position in Hollywood horror lore for that anyway.
Well, I want to thank you for being here, Larry. It meant the world to me. Like I said, I'm a big fan of this series. Resurrection is one of my favorites. Forget what the haters say. Haters are going to hate. And I really appreciated you being here, man. Thank you so much.
It's not a problem. It's a pleasure. As I say, Darnell, we make movies for audiences and people who appreciate them. That's why we get to make them. So the thanks is returned. I appreciate your interest.
Is there anything that you would like to announce that's coming up that maybe you could tell the fans about? Do you have anything coming up?
The last year or two, I've been working on a couple of podcasts. One is called Young Charlie. It's from a show called Hollywood and Crime. They deal with infamous Hollywood crimes over the last almost century. And I did a 6 episodes called Young Charlie, which Stephen Lang from Avatar, the great actor Stephen Lang, came in and did the voiceover narration of it. And it follows Charles Manson from the age of 5 to the night that he sends his followers out to commit the murders. And that was a very enjoyable exercise for me. I think it's some of my best writing, and it's a podcast, it's a whole other world for the film. Although it has very filmic aspects, we scored it and then sound designed it to feel like you're listening to a movie. And we have one coming out on Thursday called The Wonderland Murders, also by Hollywood and Crime, which details the 1981 murders of 4 people in the Hollywood Hills. And it was a film called The Wonderland 2001, 2002. Same year, I think the same year as Resurrection, starring Val Kilmer as John Holmes, the porn star who was eventually tried for the murders. And this involves, so that podcast is coming out on Thursday on a company it's called Wondery. But if you look my name up in connection with the Wonderland Murders or Young Charlie, you'll find plenty of stuff. And if you like the podcasts, they really are kind of very movie-esque. They feel, they sound, they kind of have the resonance of a film experience. So, if it's something you like, if you get into the podcast world, I would check those out. And those are kind of fun. And they were fun to do.
I don't know how often you get on Facebook, but I'm going to add you to my Halloween Facebook group if that's okay.
That's fine, sure, of course.
And once again, Larry, I want to thank you for being here. It meant the world to me. So thank you so much.
And thanks in return, Darnell, and good luck with your show and with your Facebook page, and keep me up to date.
I definitely will. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
All right. You too. See you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic, and I've just been here with the writer of Halloween Resurrection, Larry Brand. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed doing it. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you've just been listening to the interview with Larry Brand, the writer of Halloween Resurrection. And if you haven't seen that movie, go watch it. I don't know how you haven't seen it unless you've been under a rock. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Halloween Resurrection, written by Larry Brand. I've enjoyed having him on the channel. And thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic. I approve this message. This has been the Halloween Resurrection interview with Larry Brand. Thank you very much for listening, guys.